And welcome back. This week, the Justice Department confirmed that Joe Biden's son, Hunter Biden, is being investigated in 2 states for his foreign business dealings and his tax affairs. For weeks, the mainstream media, months you could say, has been reluctant to share the details of this story, stating that it was instead a Russian disinformation campaign. However, Hunter Biden himself released a statement outlining some details about the investigation. And joining us now to discuss is Newsmax host Rob Schmitt, who just released an op-ed on this story. Hey, Rob, so what do you think?
Yeah, I just think it's incredible to watch how this has all come together. I mean, obviously, I got the op-ed up. I couldn't believe it when I saw this story pop up about, just validating everything that I think a lot of people knew. Everybody knew there was a lot of dirt there. There was a lot of smoke there. It seemed like it was a legitimate story, but the media went out of its way to take a story that had all the markings of something that was going to be big, of something that was legitimate. You had this laptop, which had pictures of Hunter Biden on it, and had a lot of other information. You had Tony Bobolinsky, who was a fantastic witness, who made a lot of sense, who nobody denied. This is a guy that was working with the Bidens when they were doing this work in China. He said that Joe Biden was in on this, that Hunter was basically just, pulling money out of these countries, and Joe knew about it, and Joe was in on it. And everything kind of made sense. And then you have, I want to pull up the statement to take us back a couple months ago from NPR. This was the official position from National Public Radio on why they weren't going to report on this story. They basically said, we don't want to waste our time on stories that are not really stories. I mean, it was just astounding to see. The entirety of the mainstream media, this was their position on this thing, not because it wasn't a real story, but because they didn't want it to be a real story.
Aren't we finding out also that the Attorney General was aware of what's going on ahead of time? And that makes you wonder. Now, the Attorney General doesn't have to tell the president everything. We understand that. But it could have been an issue. It could have affected votes, right?
It could have affected votes. We don't have an explanation for why Bill Barr didn't say anything or why this never came out. It kind of takes you back to 2016, though, and James Comey with the decision about Hillary and that investigation. And maybe they just said, you know what, I don't want to get in the middle of something like this, or I have no idea. Maybe they hadn't looked at it thoroughly enough to determine whether or not Joe Biden could be implicated in it. And then it's, if you're going to do something that's damning to Hunter, you're going to hurt a presidential campaign in the process if you don't know that the candidate was involved. I have no idea. But it is interesting to know that it sounds like Barr has known since, I think, the spring.
Yeah, and it also doesn't seem to be that the media was too concerned about doing that to President Trump's children.
No, absolutely not. And I mean, that's the whole point is this. If you had 1/10 the story about Donald Trump, this explodes into a national story everywhere all the time in the weeks leading up to the election. But because it was about Joe Biden, I mean, the media all came together and just buried this thing as deep as they could. And it's astounding.
It's interesting. Yeah, what could happen, though, is there are some people saying there needs to be a special counsel to look into this. And that would mean, assuming Joe Biden takes the presidency, if that indeed is what happens, he could have a special counsel that exists. And if he were to come in and say, I'm going to close that down, people would say, well, what are you trying to hide?
Yeah, and that could certainly happen. I think a lot of people want to look into this. If the Republicans hold the Senate, I think you're going to see the Republicans looking into this as well. So that'll be curious to see. It's obviously not a great way, obviously, to start off a potential Biden presidency, which is under the cloud of investigation. And it's not only Hunter. I mean, there's 3 different states looking into not only Hunter Biden, but Joe's brother, James Biden, as well. And it's Delaware, Pennsylvania, and New York. It's a lot of investigating happening to this family right now. It looks really, really bad. And this is just the very beginning. If he gets the White House, he's not even in there yet.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember back. I think that there was someone, possibly President Trump, that was talking about investigations needing to be done about this very thing. And as a result, he was eventually impeached because of it.
And say that one more time. I'm sorry. I think you just.
Just President Trump bringing up over and over again that these issues need to be investigated.
And yeah, I certainly think they do. And by the way, anybody that mentioned any of this, whether it was President Trump or anybody that pushed this story up until yesterday or 2 days ago, was pushing Russian disinformation. That's the best part of the whole thing, is that you were pushing Russian disinformation, you were pushing fake news. The media all together in unison told us for 2 months that there's no evidence of any wrongdoing, that the laptop is probably fake, and this is clearly has the markings of Russian disinformation. That was the line. They all said it together, and it came straight from the DNC, and here we are, and it was all nonsense.
Yeah.
It's really an incredible story.
I hate to change the topic, but is that wood burning or is that gas behind you?
That's a real one, yeah. No.
Okay, it's a real one. So yeah, I don't see any wood there. So you have to go out and carry in the wood and put it in there and poke it, keep it going. A very manly thing to do, by the way, Rob. I wanted to ask you your thoughts as somebody that lives in this area. They're closing down restaurants, and a lot of people around the country are going through this now. We know in California, this is adding more and more places now as we go into what Joe Biden called this dark winter. And this is just one of the things. They're going to close indoor dining at restaurants. What do you think about that?
I mean, I don't know what's going to be left. What is going to be left if you shut down the restaurants in some of these major cities too, where the rent is so high? What are you going to have left after all this is done? If you're going to shut these down again for another foreseeable couple months, or until the vaccines really get kicking in, I don't know what you're going to have left to open at the end.
Yeah, because they're going to go under. It's not just, just hold off, we'll let you open in a few months. No, that's how they make their living. That's how they pay their employees and themselves. I mean, it's crazy. I'm sorry, Heather, I go off on that.
That's okay. That's completely fine. I totally agree.
I'm just as worried as you are. And it's just it's so easy for politicians to just shut things down, because they've never had to open anything. Most of them have just been talking their whole lives. They've never had to open a business. So it's, just close them down. They'll figure it out.
Yeah, or have a job and go on unemployment and try to get another job. Rob, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Good to see you again.
You just watched Newsmax TV, America's fastest growing cable news channel, now in more than 70 million homes. You can get Newsmax TV on your cable system or check your cable guide. And if your system doesn't carry Newsmax, call them, tell them you want Newsmax TV, because we're real news for real people.